Good Tuesday afternoon to you. I hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. A little later in the show, Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily will join us. Plenty of Browns to talk about, plenty of voicemails to get to. But we begin by talking Cavs. The Caris LeVert trade official. And this afternoon, actually this morning and afternoon, Caris LeVert on the practice court with his Cavaliers. Some familiar faces. Jarrett Allen played with him with the Brooklyn Nets, but there is Caris LeVert, the newest Cav, on the court, working out with his new team and excited to get going with his new teammates as well.
I'm super excited. I told Darius that he hit me as soon as I got traded. I told him, like, I can't wait to get going. They're a young team with a lot of energy, a lot of, positive energy, and that's the type of person I am. That's the type of player I am. So I feel like I'm going to thrive. I'm going to feel, just at home with this group. So I can't wait to get going. I'm super excited. But I love playing off the ball. I love playing next to, playmakers. I think it makes everyone's job a lot easier. So I'm definitely looking forward to playing with DG, and he's had an amazing year, and I think he's a great player. It's funny, we talked. I saw him this summer out in Vegas, and randomly, and we were just talking, not even knowing that this was going to happen. I was just telling him how much I respected his game, and couldn't wait to see him keep growing. And it's crazy that we're on the same team now.
Let's welcome in Tim Bielik, reporter for the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Tim seems to be like the perfect fit. He fills a lot of the things that the Cavs needed, being Caris LeVert.
Absolutely. I mean, he's, from all accounts, everything you read, he's a very good teammate, which is something that's going to be important to this team so as not to disrupt the chemistry that, J.B. Bickerstaff and Kobe Altman have talked about, throughout the season, and how just present that is every time you watch this team. And with Caris LeVert, the big thing that I'm looking for is I think he's another guy opposite Darius Garland who could create his own shot. And that was a problem that I think the Cavs had, with Darius out of the lineup for the last week or so while he gets his back better, is they didn't have a guy who could take care of the offense when things break down, go get a bucket, go drive to the basket, be aggressive, try and set up other teammates. They didn't really have that. And this offense that a lot of times broke down. And with so much reliance on Darius Garland, they had to find somebody else that could, take some of the pressure off him. Like I said, create his own shot, which you can't have too many of those guys. And Caris LeVert, I think, does that very well. And I'm curious how he's going to fit in with this team. I expect it's going to be, obviously, when you bring in players like this, there's always, a little bit of a break-in period. But once they kind of get the feel for each other, I'm curious what it's all going to look like in the end.
Yeah, and that was an important thing. We mentioned it. He's kind of the fit that they were looking for, and his personality is one of the reasons why. J.B. Bickerstaff talked about Caris LeVert's fit with this Cavs team.
The person part of it is, what is the most exciting. We did a lot of due diligence. We asked a lot of people. Obviously, we're fortunate that, we've had guys that played with him and they were able to speak on his character. But he's got a great reputation around the league. And, that's the most important thing. We have a great group here. Our chemistry is at an all-time high, and we didn't want to disrupt that. So him as a person was important to us, that we know we're getting the right guy. The basketball piece of it, he fits a need. His ability to put the ball on the floor and play make, create for himself, beat his man, create for others. He's going to help everybody, take some pressure off of, DG at times, make our big guys better. So he's a great complement and fit for what we have.
Yeah, and Tim, what he's getting at, he's going to make guys' jobs a little bit easier because he has skills that the Cavs didn't have. He's a wing player that can get to the basket. So Darius Garland gets a break. It makes Kevin Love gets more space to shoot threes. Anybody that can shoot going to get more space. And he's going to be pretty good with Jarrett Allen. We've seen that already from their time in Brooklyn, and he's got another one of them in Evan Mobley. So there's a lot to like about the way this fits with the Cavs personnel that they have already.
Yeah, and I think, his past experience with Jarrett Allen, I'm sure that has to help, in the blending in process. I'm sure Jarrett's, talked to a lot of guys, and, I would assume, that he will give some information about, how Caris likes to play, where he likes to have certain things and what they can expect from him. And I look at what LeVert's done in the past. Yes, he's a very good scorer. I'm looking at his numbers, 18 to 20 points per game each of the last couple seasons, but it also sticks out. Got about between 4 and 6 assists per game every season since 2018, 2019. So he's a secondary playmaker. And I believe that this team has needed some secondary playmakers since Ricky Rubio went down with a torn ACL. That was an issue. But having LeVert with the ability to be that secondary playmaker with options around him, particularly Darius Garland off the ball, Kevin Love off the ball, Lauri Markkanen when he's healthy off the ball, there could be some driving kick opportunities, I think. And to get Garland and Love in particular off the ball more often into shooting situations, as much as you want the ball in Darius Garland's hands, you also kind of want to give him the opportunity to play off ball, so he doesn't have to face all that pressure all the time. And LeVert's a guy who can do a lot of those different things. And I think, as he continues to develop his chemistry, it'll be interesting to see how much more of that playmaking onus he takes as he fills in on the offense.
Yeah, and so the question is, how does Caris LeVert think that he fits in this offense? That's a question that was put to him. Here is LeVert on that topic.
Offensively, I feel like I'm very versatile. I can do a lot of things. I can play on the ball, off the ball. I can help, obviously, score, facilitate, when we need it, space the floor as well. And then defensively, the same thing. I'm very versatile. I can guard 1 through 3, 1 through 4 at times. And this is my 6th year in the league now. So I'm very, poised, and I know what's to come. I'm one of the oldest guys in the lineup, if not the oldest. Of the core of the guys, obviously we got Rondo who's playing now. But yeah, so it's crazy that I'm one of the vets on the team for sure.
And again, you hear him mention the defense, and that's maybe because he averages 18 a game. That gets overlooked. That's important because they're going to ask him to go out and play defense.
Yeah, I mean, that's the identity of this team. Everybody plays defense. You've seen Darius Garland take a little leap defensively. Obviously, Isaac Okoro, you have one of the better young wing defenders in the NBA. Then, of course, you have Mobley and Allen under the basket as rim protectors. Lauri Markkanen, when he's healthy, has been really good defensively, surprisingly good for, his position being a 7-footer who's not necessarily the ideal physical profile for the 3. But, yeah, LeVert's going to, I think, have to play a little more defense than he has throughout his career. But I think he said himself he's a versatile player. When you look at the numbers and the way he plays, he can do a lot of different things. I mean, he had a 42-point game not too long ago for the Pacers, so he could fill up the bucket. He's got the last 2 seasons in Indiana shooting 50% from inside the arc. He could be a little better with his 3-point range, but I think if you have a guy who's willing to shoot there and be a threat scoring the ball, it's just going to open things up for everybody else. And having another guy who can demand some attention on that end of the floor will help. And obviously, if you have more scoring, obviously it's going to take less of a burden on the defense, which, without Garland has had to be tremendous in order to win games. And if you can score, even 10, 12 points more on a consistent basis, that just makes it much easier to win, knowing that you don't have to necessarily always lock teams down to 100 points or fewer.
So LeVert is an ascending guy. He's coming into his primes, as he mentioned, his 6th year in the league. He's coming home. He is from Columbus, played his high school basketball at Pickerington Central, where back in 2012, wearing number 22 here, you can see he can play some defense. He helped the Tigers win a state championship. In fact, he was the leading scorer in the state championship game, which you're looking at. Had 18 points in the game. Jayshawn Tate in the NBA, Taco Charlton of the Pittsburgh Steelers now, teammates on his Pickerington Central team. You see he scored 11 straight points there in a critical stage when Pickerington Central pulled away. The question, he grew up a Cavs fan. So here's what he had to say about, playing for the Cavs and his in-state team.
When I was growing up, I never really thought that I would be in the NBA. Like I wanted to, of course, it was a dream, of course, but I was never a high recruit or anything like that. So, obviously I watched them all the time. I was a fan of the players, but it was never like, oh, one day I'm gonna play for the Cavs. Like, of course I would have loved to, but I'm here now. It's crazy.
So, Tim, when you hear that, the thought is he still has a year left on his contract. You can be sure the Cavs, with what the Cavs gave up, everything goes fine in the way they expect it to. They're going to want to sign an extension. You don't have to convince a guy this is where he wants to be. Caris LeVert wants to be here. That's an added bonus.
Yeah, you can't understate the importance of that in the NBA. Guys that want to stay in a certain spot, Cleveland's obviously never going to be the attractive free agent destination that teams like the Heat and the Lakers and, all those teams that play in those warmer weather cities are going to be. So you hope you get some really good players. And it's a bonus for the Cavs that LeVert, grew up 2 hours away in Pickerington and played at Pick Central, which is a hotbed of professional athletes, not just in basketball, but in football. Pickerington North's kind of getting there. It's amazing that one suburb of Columbus just continues to produce so much talent. But that can't help but be, a positive for this team. And I'm sure there's got to be a lot of excitement, for Caris LeVert coming to Ohio, obviously not to the degree of what LeBron James was, whether it be talent or location, but, Ohio is still Ohio as far as, homegrown talents playing for a team like the Cavaliers. So it's a fun little story that's added on to what I think is a very good player that I'm fascinated to see how this plays out and what he can bring to the Cavaliers, not just this year, but, in years to come if the Cavs are able to re-sign him.
All right, this kind of relates back to something you mentioned earlier. This is from Basketball Reference. Cavs offensive rating with Darius Garland this season. On the court, you see their offensive rating third best in the NBA, 114. Off the court, a 106.5, that's fourth worst. So another guard, a creative guard who can get his own shot, get to the rim like LeVert, should help that immensely. And again, that just goes into what we have been saying. He was pretty much the perfect fit because he addressed some areas that the Cavs needed to address, and all in one player.
Absolutely. And obviously, the playmaking took a hit when Ricky Rubio went down for the season with the torn ACL. They tried to get Rajon Rondo, and he's decent in small doses. I know the game he had on Sunday was tremendous. I think that you can only count on that every once in a while. Brandon Goodwin, I think you're going to same kind of deal. You'll get occasionally a really good game out of him, but more or less, just kind of this kind of mediocre type performances. With LeVert, you definitely get a very good secondary playmaker who, when you need him to be a scorer, he can be a scorer. But you need him to get others involved and facilitate. Those are the things he can do. I'm not sure what the Cavs are going to be able to do in these next 2 days. Obviously, this trade took up a lot of their assets. Whether they can get another playmaker in there is going to be important. But in LeVert, you have another guy who could get the ball out of the hands of Darius Garland, who could take pressure off him, take some of the burden off him, and allow the offense to have different outlets for playmaking, and just another guy who can create his own shot and, dribble and, work with the ball in his hands, something that this team really just didn't have a lot of until this trade, and especially without Darius Garland.
Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of a break, we turn our attention to the Browns. We head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, this one about the whole Baker and Odell situation. We will also hear from Jarvis Landry. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Tim Bielik and I turn our attention to the Browns. So we're going to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about Baker Mayfield and Odell Beckham Jr.
Hi. Everybody's talking about Baker Mayfield and how bad he is and how we need to make a change. He was injured Now, we see OBJ being his deep threat, but he couldn't throw the deep ball because he was hurt. I think we need to stick by our quarterback, let him get healed, and move on from it. Give him a supporting cast. His receiving core was not that great, especially after OBJ was gone. With the injury, I think we need to give him some time. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
All right. I certainly understand where he's coming from. And, I think the wide receiving core needs an upgrade. Anybody who listens to us very often will know that. The other thing I'll say, Odell Beckham Jr. is having a lot of success with the Rams, but he's the clear number 2 behind Cooper Kupp. And that makes a difference. The quarterback play has to improve. I know a lot of it was because Baker was injured. I don't think all of it was, though. Tim, I know you feel the same way. A lot of the issues with Baker were because of that injury.
Yeah, I mean, the injury clearly, along with the harness that he had to wear to stabilize the shoulder. Every analyst that was doing a lot of Browns games last past season, in particular, Troy Aikman, Tony Romo talked a lot about that shoulder and how the harness really restricted his mechanics. And then, after injuring the second time, outside of the Cincinnati game, he just wasn't himself. And, I understand the sentiment to possibly move on from Baker. I can understand that. But I think, this was just a bad season for him. And it could be attributed to a lot of different factors. The fact that he was only healthy for not even 3 full halves of football this past season, played a big role in that. And the question is whether that's the exception or that's the norm with Baker. And I mean, we've seen both. We've seen how great he could be, particularly at the end of 2020, and how bad he could be, particularly, in 2021 when he was struggling with the injuries. I mean, he had 6 of them. You forget also he had the knees injury, the knee, the heel that was banged up, just a lot of stuff going on with him. He needs to get healthy, but he also, I think, needs to, continue to improve his mental approach to the game, because I think that ultimately broke down as well. And, whether that's attributed to pain or frustration, I don't know. That's, stuff that kind of remains to be seen with Baker. But whoever's quarterbacking this year, whether it's Baker or somebody else, you got to give him some help at receiver. You got to give him somebody, maybe even 2 players who are going to make his life much easier than it would be than bringing the same group out from 2021 again.
Yeah, agree with that wholeheartedly. All right, so Odell is out getting ready for the Super Bowl against Cincinnati Bengals. Jarvis Landry crashed the media availability press conference for the Super Bowl. Here is Jarvis Landry and Odell.
One of my favorite tattoos that you have, you're actually living it. And the tattoo says, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moment of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in the times of challenge and controversy. And you always stand up, brother. You always stand up. I love you. And go get that ring. Go get that ring, dog.
I love you, dog. Give me chills. I know that voice, man. Hey, I just want to say, bro, if it wasn't for you, I really mean this from the bottom of my heart. I know I always tell you this, bro. But besides Pops, there's no man who ever came into my life and has had the effect and impact that you have had to make me a better person, player, man, soon to be father, brother, lover. You've shown me the light, dog. And I love you so much, bro. And this moment is for us, bro. This is everything we ever talked about, dog. So I appreciate you coming on here, bro. You know it's nothing but love.
Absolutely. And vice versa, brother.
Yes,
go get that ring, dude. Go get that ring, dude.
Got to, bro.
Let's go.
I got you, bro. Love.
Appreciate you, bro. Yeah.
Appreciate you.
All right, and Tim, it's important to note, those guys are, lifelong friends pretty much. So you certainly understand, Jarvis being happy for Odell. People are reading into it. Oh, he's, there's Team Odell and Team Jarvis and the Team Baker. I don't know about any of that. I don't question at all Jarvis wanting Odell Beckham Jr. to win a Super Bowl. It's just me.
I think that's just a friend rooting for a friend. And we know that Odell and Jarvis Landry, they've been friends for a long time, dating back to their LSU days. I'm sure that played a role into why the Browns traded for him going into 2019, and that made a lot of sense. Obviously, it just didn't work out in Cleveland for a multitude of reasons. And like you said, he's thriving in a in a lesser role in Los Angeles, where he's the number 2 guy behind Cooper Kupp, who, by the way, led the NFL in the regular season in the 3 big categories: catches, yards, touchdowns. So right now he's the best receiver in football. And, Odell Beckham in a one-on-one situation still is very good. Problem in Cleveland was he wasn't getting a lot of one-on-ones. The coverages were, keying on him because he was the number 1 guy. And that's part of the reason why it didn't work. Chemistry with Baker also was an issue. Injuries were an issue. A lot of things played into what didn't work with Odell. But, like I said, I can't fault, Jarvis Landry for wanting Odell to win a Super Bowl. I mean, that's just, one friend supporting another heading into the biggest game of his life. So, I mean, we'll all be watching how that plays out on Sunday night.
Yeah, and again, the two have been friends for a long, long time. All right, Jarvis Landry, guy of many talents, has a song that he dropped a little preview of. I hope you're happy. Here you go.
Coming to Cleveland was to try to see what I could really come do here. Look at the difference up in 2 years, 4 years, now it's looking like New Year's. That's how I know it don't matter who gon' come through here to know who really had juice here. For real. I got receipts I can go through. I don't care about who owe who, but why somebody comfortable enough to talk about me and they told you.
Like I said, he's got a little bit of talent there. Some talent. He can catch passes. I'm all right with that.
Yeah, I mean, nothing wrong with putting out a track together like that with Jarvis, especially if you can do it well. And I mean, that's not bad. I think that's pretty solid. There's plenty of athletes that have tried to go out into music with mixed results. Some have been much better than others. Just throughout all of sports. So it's kind of fun to see these players branch out and show off their other talents, because I think that we all have to recognize that as good as they are on the football field, these are also people and they have other unique talents. So, good for Jarvis. It's always kind of fun to see a different side of these athletes that, you don't normally get to see because you're always just watching the games or whatever, or them talking in practice. You never get to see much of their personal lives, even though we have more access to it than ever thanks to social media.
Yeah, it's a fun thing to see. All right, this not so much fun to see. All right, let's take this is from Field Yates. Longest active droughts without a top 10 total offense team. Dolphins goes all the way back to 1995. Browns 2007, so second longest active, and the Texans at 2012. Now, the Dolphins and the Browns, I think you trace that back to all the quarterback issues. The Texans had Deshaun Watson and Hopkins, but not much else. That just shows you, think about that. 2007 is the last time they had a top 10 offense. That's a struggle.
Yeah, you're going back several head coaches, several GMs, all the way back to the days of Derek Anderson.
Yeah.
Back when of course, Braylon Edwards, Kellen Winslow, Joe Jurevicius. You had an older Jamal Lewis who at times looked like he had the fountain of youth back in 2007. Didn't quite look like the guy who had almost 300 yards against the Browns, but still very good. But, part of that obviously, goes to the fact that they just haven't drafted well historically, at that time in the offense. They have never found, the Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes style quarterback. Obviously, they're hoping Baker Mayfield is that guy, but time's kind of running out on that. They've drafted, obviously, Nick Chubb, who's one of the best running backs in football, but, the passing game is still, where most of the offensive production comes from. That's where all the big yards come from, the big plays come from the passing game. And the Browns just have never really been able to get top-notch receivers. And, again, Jarvis Landry was brought in with a trade. Donovan Peoples-Jones, 6th-round pick, still maybe needs a little more time before he can step into that role. Odell Beckham came in via trade. Rashard Higgins was a 5th-round pick. They really have not been able to land those number one offensive weapons to really help out whoever's a quarterback on the perimeter. I know, obviously, you need both the very good quarterback and the very good playmaker to make offenses work, but the Browns really have not had either one for most of this time from 2007 and now. I think they're closer a quarterback, maybe not where they necessarily need to be, but they got to bring playmaker up to kind of at least meet that. Then maybe we could start to talk about them closing out potentially a top 10. It's going to take a little more personnel wise for that to happen.
I agree. You got to show me some guys that threaten the defense other than Nick Chubb. Tim Bielik and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we continue talking Browns. Voicemail of Truth and Reason, obviously about Nick Chubb. We'll also take a look at Tim's position ranking series for the upcoming draft. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Life is getting back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tri-c.edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for spring classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. We're going to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This about how Nick Chubb was used this season.
Hello, I'm James. I'm a true Browns fan. Been a true Browns fan probably before Bernie Kosar days. But anyway, my concern is, I kind of agree with some of the fans about the coaching staff, because there's many times that they should have ran our beefy 24 running back. He's probably the best in the league. There's a lot of he should have had top numbers even with his missing a few games. He should be the number one running back of all time. But the coaching staff doesn't know how to put him in when really to need to be there. Baker is garbage. Baker has missed too many receivers downfield. Baker has not read his reads right. I think that all falls back on the coaching. Coaching sucks. Even management sucks. We should have been to a Super Bowl a couple times. Obviously, it's not going to happen. Very disappointing season. Let's see if we have another disappointing season. If not, we need to change coaches again.
All right. Certainly appreciate the voicemail. I get what you're saying with Chubb. Disagree with you on Baker being garbage. Now, quarterback play needs to improve. And Tim, the last thing in the world I want is to change coaches in front office again. I think one of the reasons we're in this mess is because we change coaches in front office every 2-3 years. I thought the front office actually did a pretty good job. I've said that repeatedly. I think Andrew Berry, I understand the plan. I understand how he attacked it. I think some of the players need to play a little bit better. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I think Browns fans should have full confidence in Andrew Berry and, the moves he's made as general manager. The moves he's made have worked out more often than they haven't, which is always what you kind of want from your general manager. I have to disagree with, obviously what he's saying about coaching. It's the NFL. Teams have to throw more than they run more. It's just the nature of the game. It's 2022. The game is tiered, and the rules are set up so that the passing game has the advantage in a lot of ways, with the ways that they protect the quarterback, contact against the receivers being so limited now compared to what they used to be. Every team's going to throw more than they run, because that's just what they do. No matter who the running back is, and obviously, I understand, fans not being happy about how few times Nick Chubb has run. Remember, this was a guy who in college also had a lengthy injury history. So you're trying to maximize him and, protect him, give him longevity in his career, maximize him for when you absolutely desperately need him. And when it comes to the lack of offense, coaching can only do so much. The saying is, it's not always about the X's and O's, it's about the Jimmies and Joes, and the Browns have to get those guys to really improve the offense and make it easier on the coaching. And I think if Andrew Berry can get those playmakers, you'll see Kevin Stefanski's offense look very different, because all of a sudden he'll have players he could trust more in those situations, because they'll turn shorter passes into big plays and convert those big plays more often, because that's what the NFL is on offense, is who can make those big plays. and the Browns just didn't have enough of those guys in 2021.
Yeah, and again, we're in year 3 of this regime with Stefanski and Barry. Year 1 probably went a little bit better than everybody thought they did. They made the playoffs. It increased the expectations. And the other thing is, I guess I'm saying we need a little bit better from Andrew Barry as well. You know, I don't like the wide receiving core, so obviously you don't go into a season and say, man, we're set. You know, our wide receivers aren't any good. So obviously they misjudged what they had in the wide receiving core, and it was injured, it was banged up. But yeah, I'll say they need to get more playmakers on offense. That's what this offseason should be about. All right, Browns Twitter releases this. Kareem Hunt, a guy that was banged up much of the year, him getting healthy gives them another guy that threatens the defense.
Hunt's going to run to the right. He got it. 25, a cut 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown, Kareem Hunt.
I represent the game. I represent the fame. Burning with desire like the Olympic flame. I'm out to make it tame. You bound to know my name. That throne is the king, so I'm here to make a claim. What up? So what up? What up? So what up?
And Tim, I think Hunt being out really negatively impacted the passing game quite a bit. I think he was a guy that they planned on using. I know they did. They did in the year before, but I think they planned on expanding his role in the passing game. And when he got banged up, that hurt the wide receiving core that much more.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, his ability to be effective both in the run game and the pass game, obviously, he was a key part of why he's so valuable alongside Nick Chubb in that backfield. And not having him in when, you know, Baker was needing help to kind of, you know, help him out in the pass game, not having him there as a check down option, be able to get, you know, easy 6-7 yards, usually that hurt. And I mean, there's no question about it. And in the run game, as far as like a tandem, no, this isn't meant to be a knock to Dearness Johnson, but, you know, Kareem Hunt's just a more explosive player. He's a guy that I think is more of a home run threat, you know, that anytime he gets the ball, he's got a chance to make a big play in the same way that Nick Chubb was. Dearness Johnson was a guy more who got things done with chunk plays, but Hunt was a guy who could take the ball to the end zone. And, I mean, they showed highlights of the Bears game. It's easy to forget how good Kareem Hunt was in that Chicago game, how much they needed him when Nick Chubb and that offense were struggling to get things going early on in that football game.
Yeah, agree wholeheartedly with you. All right, you are in the middle of a position ranking series. Take us through that and where we were the last couple of days.
Well, I'll start kind of at the bottom at number 11. Number 4 is going to go up tomorrow, so you'll know by the morning what exactly positionally is going to be left. But at the bottom, I have running back at number 11. This is a group that's really got only 2 guys that to me are second rounders. Maybe Kenneth Walker, the third from Michigan State, sneaks into the first round, but that's it. And even then, the depth kind of falls off there. Tight end number 10, I think there's not going to be a day 1 guy like running back, but I think day 2, there's got a chance to be a good flood of them. Whether it's Jalen Weidemeyer from Texas A&M, Jeremy Rucker from Ohio State, Trey McBride from Colorado State. Teams are going to find some good tight ends to pick from in the second round, you know, in this draft. Number 9, this is where the big drop is from last year to this year, and it's quarterback. You know, last year quarterback was number 1 for me, and I mean, they had 5 guys go in the top 15 for the first time ever. This year, you'd be lucky to get 2 with Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis looking like the cream of the crop there. And even after the top 6 or 7 guys, there is a massive drop-off where after day 2, after about the 6th quarterback goes, you may not see one go necessarily for a couple of rounds. So it's lack of top-end talent there and depth that sticks out. Safety's next up at number 8. And I got to tell you, safety's got maybe the most intriguing player to me in this entire draft, maybe the best one in Kyle Hamilton in Notre Dame. I mean, the term unicorn isn't always thrown around all the time in drafts, but Kyle Hamilton is an absolute unicorn at safety. He's big, he's fast, he's smart, can play the pass, can play the run. I mean, there's nothing the guy can't do, and that plays a big part of why safety edges out quarterback. Defensive tackle number 7, it's a very SEC heavy class. Jordan Davis stands out as a first-round guy. Devontae White, his teammate at Georgia, Fedarian Mathis from Alabama, DeMarvin Leal from Texas A&M. You're going to see those guys go off the board. But Leal's a first-round guy. I think Mathis and White could sneak into round 1. Mathis, I think, is round 2. Perrion Winfrey of Oklahoma, great week at the Senior Bowl. He's in that mix as well. Linebacker number 6, Devin Lloyd from Utah is the guy for me. Utah went to the Rose Bowl this year off the back of that defense, and Devin Lloyd was the heart and soul of that defense. He's a true 3-down backer. I mean, he can really cover. That's improved as well as he plays downhill. And then second in that group, the Kobe Dean from Georgia. I like his game. It reminds me a lot of Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, both in size and style. And just went up today, interior offensive line, number 5. Tyler Linderbaum from Georgia has got a chance to be the highest drafted center since Steve Everett in 1993 went in the top 15 and was a Browns pick, by the way. A little throwback for all the Browns fans back in those days, but he's a complete center. Kenyon Green from Texas A&M, a good guard. There are some very good guards and centers that could go in the second day of the draft that really stand out to me in depth. So, I'll have numbers 4, 3, and 2 coming later in the week, and then Monday you'll find out what my number 1 position group is. But this is a draft that's got some interesting depth, and with no true quarterback that's going to be in the top 5, it's going to be very fascinating to see who goes where in this top 10. There's variety, particularly with edge rusher and corner, where it all can go. So it's going to be a very fun class from that regard, and the fact we may get a little positional chaos.
Tim Bielik and I are going to step aside, take one more timeout. On the other side of the break, we will come back, hit the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the quarterbacks and some options for the Browns. Sports4CLE will be right back.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
We continue talking Browns with Tim Bielik from cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. Time to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the Browns and some quarterback options.
Hey, what's up, Dave? This is Taylor once again. I wanted to add my 2 cents to the ESPN simulating NFL QB changes. And Mark was adamant about not adding Russell Wilson to our roster. When I say our, I mean the Cleveland Browns. And he was very adamant about adding Derek Carr. Now, I would like both of those QBs over our current QB, Baker Mayfield. But when I do a side-by-side comparison of Derek Carr and Russell Wilson has outperformed Derek Carr in all of the seasons that they've been NFL quarterbacks. Now, Derek Carr is good in his own right, but the way Mark was adamant about not adding Russell Wilson, and he said something about his age, 33 years old. Now, Russell Wilson is 3 years older than Derek Carr, but Russell Wilson takes care of his body. Russell Wilson has the ability to escape, and he is built to absorb some hits and behind our stellar offensive line. And if we add receivers or make use of the receivers we already have, including the running backs, the tight ends, I truly believe that adding Russell Wilson to our roster will help us become perennial Super Bowl contenders for as long as Russell Wilson can perform at an elite level. Hey, thanks for taking my call.
You've kind of won me over. I went back and looked at it. Russell Wilson's only missed a couple of games in his entire career. The concern I would have, and you've kind of alleviated it, would be the number of number 1 picks that it would take to acquire Russell Wilson, because we do need to upgrade the wide receiving core, and Russell Wilson is not going to come cheap. But when you look at what Russell Wilson has done, it's an elite level quarterback. What are your thoughts on that, Tim?
I kind of agree that I've said before that if you're going to move on from Baker, you need to know for a fact that the guy you're getting is better than him. And I'm not talking about a little better, like slightly more than letter. I'm talking, up a couple tiers, up a couple levels from Baker. And I think Russell Wilson fits in that category. We've seen what he can do with some very talented receivers with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. But outside of those guys and Chris Carson, the running back, Seattle just hasn't done a lot to really help him. I know they've been aggressive trying to get some veterans on that defense, Javen Clowney at one point, now Jamal Adams, and they just really haven't given him the support, and the offensive line he's played in front of Seattle is not very good. So, I mean, you give him the Cleveland. If the Browns were able to get him, then you could insulate him with a very good offensive line, very good run game, a defense that, is very talented and is still young with still some upward growth to go. And, you still need receivers, but I think if you are able to upgrade that quarterback position with a player like Russell Wilson, that would be, and it's available and you can do it. It's a good way to go. It's a good upgrade. And I think it would give the Browns a much better shot of winning a Super Bowl than, if for whatever reason they went and got Derek Carr. Carr's fine. He's better than Baker, but I think Russell Wilson is much better than Baker.
Yeah, it will cost you quite a bit, but in looking at it, his durability is what really surprised me. I think in all the years he's played, he missed a couple of games this year, 3, and those were the first 3 games he missed, that's unbelievable in the NFL without question. All right, so let's listen to this. This is from ESPN's Get Up. Along the same lines, it's Dan Graziano talking about Russell Wilson and what he would do to a team that was, fringe making the playoffs.
I do think he's an all-time great. I mean, he's got more wins through 10 seasons than any quarterback ever has. He's 4th all-time in passer rating. There are numbers that support him as an all-time great quarterback. And to Sacho's point, I think, not only a 2-time Super Bowl champion if they don't get intercepted there, but against Peyton Manning and Tom Brady in back-to-back years. I mean, that's pretty significant. So, I think Seattle has not built around him the kind of team that it had early in his career, and that makes a difference. I do think we've seen years where he has elevated the team beyond its talent level otherwise and carried them to wins. And I do think there are rosters in this league that if you added Russell Wilson to them instead of their current quarterback would transform from decent teams to Super Bowl contending teams. Yeah.
And I think that's the point that our caller was making, and he had called a couple of times. And you know what? Makes a valid point. He's kind of changed my mind. I might be willing to do Baker in the 2 or 3 number ones that it was doing. But I can see the point that he would elevate a team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's clear from the moment he started, with Seattle, with the Seahawks, that, he's a very special quarterback. I do think what's hurt him in the past couple of years is, again, like Dan Graziano was talking about, Seattle just doesn't help him, The offensive line has been a mess. The defense has been up and down. They really haven't done much outside of giving 2 really good receivers, again, in Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, a very good running back in Chris Carson. They just haven't helped him. They made some weird picks. It worked out well in the beginning because of how well they drafted in the later rounds, getting Richard Sherman, Cam Chancellor with those very late draft picks. But they haven't done that lately. And there's also the question of what, Pete Carroll has done as a head coach, that it's starting to sour a little bit there. The offensive coordinator has been an issue with that franchise for a while. So, I mean, there's been a lot of extenuating circumstances, but in spite of all that, up until this past season, Wilson has been able to overcome a lot of those things and keep this team in a playoff race and even get to the playoffs, win some playoff games, because he's just that talented. If you put him in an environment with Cleveland where there's a little less pressure on him because he has more talent to work with, outside of receiver, of course, but everywhere else is an upgrade. I think you could see a Russell Wilson that could really succeed in Cleveland.
Yeah, my only concern would be, would you be able to upgrade the receiving core as much as you need to, because you're going to have to give up a lot of capital. But yeah, I'm with you now. All right, Tim Bielik, as always, man, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Tim.
You got it. Thanks for having me, guys. Have a good day.
All right, Tim Bielik, make sure you look out at his draft positional prospect rankings. They're coming out. Number 4 coming out later this week. All right, we're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily will join us. We'll continue to talk Browns. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason about the Browns' weapons. Sports for CLE. Be right back.
Life is getting back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tri-c.edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for spring classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
Welcome back to Sports for CLE. We continue talking Browns. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the Browns and their offensive weapons.
I would have to say that from my observation, these are the things that went wrong this season. For one, a coach says he believes in Nick Chubb, but however, Nick Chubb wasn't given the ball heavy like Devin Cook in Minnesota and a couple of other people. Also, too, when Kareem Hunt was ready to play, they left him standing on the sideline. And practically the entire season, Njoku, one of the most vertical and talented Pro Bowl tight ends, was like forgotten when they brought Cooper in. And then Higgins is like got the best timing with Baker Mayfield, because that's who he practiced with before he even took the field in his rookie year. And every time Higgins comes in, you know, he bails Baker out. They got that connection. So something's going on here with the coach's disconnect with his lineup. That's the major problem. If you don't understand your lineup and understand the connections that your quarterback got, you're setting him up for failure.
All right, certainly appreciate the voicemail. I agree with some of it, don't agree with all of it. Obviously, that's kind of the way it goes. Nick Chubb was banged up, remember, missed some time with COVID, also, had other issues. Should they have used him more? A little bit. Kareem Hunt was banged up. I'll agree with you. You got to figure out a way to unlock David Njoku. That's a guy that's a mismatch that they haven't used properly. And for whatever reason, Rashard Higgins has struggled with every coaching staff that has been here during his time, and there have been a lot of them. He seems to, for whatever reason, he seems to disappear and his playing time gets diminished. Let's welcome in Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily. So Casey, the voicemailer wasn't happy about the way the weapons were used. There's some validity to that. I would say the wide receiving core, they just misjudged how good they were going to be this year, and I'm as guilty of that as anybody.
Yeah, I think everyone was. It wasn't just fans and analysts. It was nationwide as far as the overvaluing of the roster, especially the skill positions. But I think when it comes to Chubb, they have a very deliberate plan, and they're not going to overuse him. I think you can look at cautionary tales of like Todd Gurley, who's 27 and he's already out of the league now. They're not going to run Chubb into the ground. Now, it's always when you have a player who's getting 5 yards a carry, yeah, of course you want to see him get a couple extra totes because you never know when he's going to break one. But they're definitely not going to run him into the ground. And with Hunt, he was hurt. I mean, to say that he wasn't used properly, I mean, you have to be available first. But I'm with you. David Njoku, that's puzzling to me because I thought he'd have a way bigger part in the vertical passing game. But in a year where they struggled to get separation, you would think that trying to create mismatches with someone like Njoku would be a priority, and it never really seemed to be. And when it comes to Rashard Higgins, like I know people don't want to hear this, but he's just another guy. He's not going to change your wide receiver room. I know it's the feel-good story of him and Baker having a good connection in Baker's rookie season, but he's not a difference maker. He's not coming in and all of a sudden safeties are going to shade over to his side and open up the rest of the field. It was a feel-good story, but I think it's come to an end.
Yeah, and again, it's been with every coaching staff. There have been multiple coaching staffs, and every one of them has kind of moved away from him or lessened his role. Obviously, wide receiver, something the Browns need. Let's take a look at these rankings. These are from Todd McShay. And so he ranks Drake London at number 9. Then we got Garrett Wilson at 10. Another Ohio State guy, Chris Olave, at 18. Treylon Burks, he ranks at 20. And Jamison Williams at 25. Now, he's coming off an ACL. When you look at those, obviously the Browns need playmakers. Which of those 5, if all of them are available at 13, and there's no guarantee that they all will be, but I'm gonna say they all are, just for the sake of conversation. Which one do you like the best as a fit for the Browns?
For me, I think it's Treylon Burks. I think you get a guy who's a playmaker that you don't have to utilize strictly in the passing game. You know, and I know it's really easy to look at something like what Deebo Samuel did this year and say, how do we get a player that can do similar things? But Burks is that kind of guy. Like, you can use him in multiple ways in the backfield screen game. And, of course, vertically passing. He's got tremendous speed. And I saw it came out this last week. He has 5X hands. That's just unbelievable. He's got mitts like that, you know. But I think he can reach his ceiling faster because of the multiple ways that you can get him involved in the game.
Yeah, I'm with you. The more I hear about it, and I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen him play much. I don't sit and watch Arkansas football very often. But I'm going to go find out. I'm going to go find some Treylon Burks video because I'm intrigued, his run after the catch and everything. And you kind of answered what I was going to lead into. Browns obviously need a couple of guys that can produce now. Do you trust that in a draft pick?
Well, if we're talking about week 1, probably not. They're also going to have to address the position group in free agency, and they have to be comfortable with whoever they bring in being able to be a de facto number 1 until their draft selection gets their feet under them. So that's going to be an approach from multiple angles. But, you know, we're talking week 6, week 8. I think you have a good shot that your draft selection is up to speed enough to be your number 1.
Yeah, and the other thing is, you know, history tells us Odell Beckham Jr. was a trade. Jarvis Landry was a trade. There's a guy hanging out there, Calvin Ridley. You intrigued by that? I sure am.
Yeah. I mean, I think he meets everything that you want in a receiver, especially with the Browns and their age guardrails and bringing someone in for what will be the end of their first contract, beginning of the second. I think he would fit those parameters. But we also don't know what his personal life is like right now. I know he sat out last year. Don't know exactly what he was dealing with. But if they can figure that out, he's definitely a candidate.
Yep, I agree wholeheartedly. And you do have to make sure he's good, as they say. He's good to go before you make that trade. Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily and I are going to take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we continue talking Browns. Head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason about Baker Mayfield. We'll also look at redrafting the 2021 draft. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
The eyes of a nation are on Cleveland for the 1967 mayoral election. Seth Taft, the grandson of a U.S. president, faces Carl Stokes, the great-grandson of a slave. Stokes, a high school dropout who returned to school and earned college and law degrees en route to becoming an Ohio legislator, runs a textbook campaign, winning the support of black and white voters to become the first African-American mayor of a major U.S. city.
We continue talking Browns football with Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily. We're going to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about Baker Mayfield and the Browns this season.
Hey, this is Tony here, longtime listener, lifetime fan of the Cleveland Browns. I'd like to discuss the giant elephant in the room when it comes to Baker Mayfield. And I believe the Browns played him solely to lower his stock, so that way he's not deserving of that $40 million, more along the lines of $25, $27 million. So that way he can continue to be on the team and continue to keep the weapons that they have. Because if you give him 40, you might as well get in the list and ask, who should we cut? Because there's much better talent out there that's playing who's getting paid a whole lot less and producing and doing a whole lot more for the team. Thanks, guys. You guys are awesome.
Tony, I appreciate the phone call, the voicemail very much. I disagree, and here's why. The salary cap is going up, and it's going up, and it's going to go up. And once sports wagering becomes legal in more places, it's going to go up even more. So there are a lot of revenue streams. I think they played Baker Mayfield because they flat out felt he was the guy that gave them the best chance to win. I understand where you're going with it, but I just don't agree with it. Casey, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, they gave him the leeway to work through his injuries. Now, there's an argument to be made whether or not that was the right call. But I can't buy the cutting your own face to spite your, you know what I mean, to spite your nose type stuff. To me, it's comes down to like the Browns. Okay. He put a metric ton of bad tape out there by playing. So that's what we do know. We know that fans and analysts, so that's how they're going to judge it. They're going to judge of what they've seen last. But with the front office, it comes down to how they feel about him. And we really don't know that answer. We're not going to know until they show us through their actions. Do they go bring in someone they view as competition, or do they just bring in a standard backup? That's going to show us a lot more of how they actually feel about Baker. And I can't see them sabotaging the young man just to lower his value. Like you said, the salary cap is just going to keep on climbing and climbing. And whatever is signed this year is going to be a good value in 2 years. You know, that's just the way the quarterback market works. So I can't buy that argument that they would play him just to lower his value.
Yeah, and the reason, you know, again, the salary cap is going up astronomically just based on the revenue streams that the league has. So they're going to be able to keep all these guys that they want. Andrew Berry is a guy that's pretty sharp business acumen, and that might be a reason that you don't bring in a Russell Wilson or somebody like that, because that will put you up against the cap. But he'll manage it, and they'll keep. There's a reason we have a lot of Harvard guys in our front office, and they'll be able to figure out exactly what they need to do. All right, before I let you go, let's take a look at this redrafting of the 2021 draft. This is by ESPN.com. So they have the Browns taking Odafe Owe from Penn State with the 26th pick, and he had a heck of a year. But I think I'd still stay with Greg Newsome. I think the ability to be a shutdown corner and pair him with Denzel Ward, I think that's a great pairing. And again, I think Owe's a great player.
Yeah, I agree. And if the roles were reversed, say we did pick Owe last year and they had us take Newsome this year, it's you know, vice versa. Owe is a tremendous pass rusher, but you'd just be kicking the ball down the line. You would still need a cornerback this year. So the Browns took their cornerback last year. And the fact that he fell to the Browns at 26 was amazing. They got a tremendous value there.
Yeah.
And they also got Clowney, and then they had McKinley. So they had players they could use that other edge rush. Now, if they had Oweh, we wouldn't be worrying about that. We'd be looking at other problems. But the fact of the matter is, you have your second corner in-house, and that is a very important position opposite Denzel, because you're going to see tons of action, especially in a league where you have to face Jamar Chase 2 times, going against the Bengals now. Having someone like Newsome is invaluable. But Oweh would have been just as solid of a pick. It would just kick the can down the line, giving you a different problem for this upcoming season.
Yeah, and in fairness, they said that Newsome would have been picked earlier, which I agree with. So the Browns got it right on that one. Here at 59, they have him taking Milton Williams from Louisiana Tech. And Marshall is a guy that was the original pick at 59. And they have JOK, who the Browns traded up to get, going earlier as well. So again, the bottom line is with the redrafts, both of the guys that the Browns picked in the first 2 rounds went significantly earlier. So a big gold star to Andrew Berry and the front office for those 2 picks.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't trade JOK for anybody. Like that was a tremendous pick. They had to move up a couple spots to get him, but the value is insane. And I think if you get past, you have Garrett and Denzel. But past that, the nucleus of this defense is going to be those 2 young players growing through the game together, with Newsome and JOK. And I mean, they just nailed it, knocked it out of the park with those 2. But once again, they do have a need at defensive tackle, and he would fill that role. But I still think that they're going to be able to find that kind of value in either rounds 2 or 3 this upcoming season.
All right, before I let you go, big question is we've seen what Andrew Berry and the front office done in the last 2 years. We know they need playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. How much confidence should Browns fans have based on those 2 years that they find a couple of guys who can threaten defenses?
Tremendous. I mean, you look at Berry, when he concentrated on revamping the offense in 2020, you saw what he was able to do. Transversely did the same thing in the defense in 2021. He's going to put all his concentration into that. They're going to get it figured out. They're going to get guys in here that are dynamic and bring a skill set that the Browns don't already have. So you should feel very confident.
Agree with you wholeheartedly. Casey Kinnamon, Dog Pound Daily, thanks so much for the time and the insight as always. Appreciate it, Casey.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Casey Kinnamon, make sure you read him, dogpounddaily.com. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports4CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Scheduled guest, the D-Man, Dennis Maniloff from News Radio WTAM 1100, and Evan Damerol from the Locked On Cavs podcast. We will see you again tomorrow, 4 o'clock, Sports4CLE. Have a great night, everybody.